So here we are stood outside the pleasure beach, and one might think that it's park opening or park close. However, it's a 10 o'clock close today and it's about 5 o'clock. Why are we outside, you ask? Well, we are going to be doing Pasaje Del Terror, which is its 25th anniversary. The Scare Maze just outside the pleasure beach. If you've been watching the channel for a little while, you'll know that I've done 2 Scare Mazes, both of which were at Fort Pipe Fright Night, so this is going to be my third. I've been walking past this thing since I was a kid and been too scared to go in, but today that is going to change. This scare attraction's been going since 1998 and it's now 2023. It's not owned by the Pleasure Beach. Pasaje Del Terror is a separate company who've had scare attractions all over the world actually, in countries such as, well, the US, Spain is where it originated, I believe, because Pasaje Del Terror, or Pasaje Del Terror, as I think it's pronounced officially, is actually Passage of Terror in Spanish. What happened was Jeffrey Thompson experienced a version in Orlando, which is now sadly closed, called Terror on Church Street, and decided I want one of them on Pleasure Beach property. So yeah, this thing is owned by a separate company, but it's on Pleasure Beach property. I've heard very, very positive reviews. I've heard it's very terrifying as well. I reckon it's going to be the scariest of the scare attractions I've done so far. But here we go. This is Pasaje Del Terror. I'm going to give you a detailed review afterwards. So this is the queue line, guys. I think we've been batched into a group. Nice theming. Nice walls. And we're going to be going in the basement of the casino building very soon to experience this thing. So we're now back in daylight and we've just come out of Pasaje Del Terror. Yeah, back to reality. It does say when you're going up the stairs actually, this way back to reality. Let's just hold it there for a second. It's now been a few days since I experienced the attraction and I've obviously slept since then. And I have to say that the original review I did for Pasaje was pretty dreadful. I missed stuff out, I was non-specific, I didn't give context. It was probably a little bit dishonest. Don't get me wrong, some of what I filmed on site was good, and I will cut back to that footage when I do an in-depth analysis of the attraction and get the reviews and thoughts of the others who went through with me. It was obviously my first ever run through the attraction, Josh and Amelie's second ever run through because they had one in 2019. And it was actually Danielle's third ever run through because I believe she'd been through in both 2018 and 2019. However, first of all, I need to give you my proper, honest verdict. Now, Pasaje Del Terror is a very highly renowned attraction. It's obviously been sat outside the Pleasure Beach for over 25 years now, operating year-round. And it's brilliant that they can keep something like that running for so long, with most scare attractions obviously only operating in the Halloween season. And it gets some amazing reviews for being incredibly intense and whatnot from scare enthusiasts. But unfortunately, I don't feel that the stars aligned for us in terms of our run through. And I'm not necessarily blaming Pasaje either, because they have to keep this up every day of the Pleasure Beach season all year. And you're going to have outliers or runs that aren't necessarily quite up to standard. You never know, our run through might have been up to standard, but I just don't feel it was, based off other stuff I've heard about this attraction, and there could have been all sorts of factors. Starting off with the positives. On the whole, despite what I've just said, I really did still enjoy the attraction. I'm not sure that some of the others in our group would go as far as to say they enjoyed it, but I know for a fact me and Danielle definitely. In terms of outside the attraction, there's quite an iconic actor that was out there, Timothy the Clown. If you've ever been through the attraction before or whatnot, or if you're even just a theme park enthusiast who visits Pleasure Beach, you may have heard of this guy. An absolutely amazing actor who was welcoming people to it. And as we were waiting to go into the attraction, we also had a staff member stood with us outside. I mean, he was kind of half staff member, half scare actor, because he did have some horror makeup on, but he was doing a brilliant job because it was quite a while we stood out there, but he was keeping the group entertained, getting to know some of the group members, and it made us all feel really, really welcome, while also building up a lot of tension. And this carries through into the first kind of official scene, you could say, of the attraction, which is actor-led, and the actors in there did a brilliant job of setting the scene of the attraction, which doesn't really have a storyline beyond that you're basically facing your worst nightmares. And again, the cast just built the tension up even further. The attraction's finale is absolutely amazing as well. Definitely out of the 3 scare attractions I've done, the best finale by far. Without spoiling it too much, you're ambushed in all directions, and it really does get you running out the doors at the end of it into obviously the horror bar, where if it's open, people will be sat there and whatnot laughing at you. So yeah, bit embarrassing. It's the different scenes between the start and the end where things suffer a lot. Don't get me wrong, every single scene in there is very well themed. There's a couple of actor-led scenes in there where you obviously stop for a minute and an actor gives you some dialogue, a bit like the very first scene in the attraction. And I do like the fact that one of those subtly, but in character, acts as a way of basically asking all the guests, are you ready to continue? And that's about 2/3 of the way through, I'd say. It's the final actor-led scene in there, and obviously it's just checking that everyone's okay to go on, because obviously, as I mentioned, the ending is quite intense, and that is good. You know, if there are any younger kids in there, it's an opportunity for them to leave. However, some of the other walkthrough scenes in there felt a bit lackluster in terms of scares. A lot of the scares seemed very visual, and when you're someone who's visually impaired like me, that's no good at all. For example, without spoiling it too much, there was one scene in there where I didn't even see the scare, where you had like an actor in like a UV mask, apparently it was. And don't get me wrong, this is a very quick scene about halfway through the attraction. It wasn't really making any noise in there. You kind of just appeared and then disappeared, you could say. And a lot of the time the actors just weren't getting very close to us and stuff. You know, I find it more scary when you've got an actor 2 centimetres from your face, a bit like happens a lot in Creek Freak Massacre, but in the case of this, that wasn't really happening, it didn't feel like. Now, I should mention, there was a minor incident in the first half of the attraction, which meant that we had to be stopped and an actor had to sort something out, and props to them because they stayed in character the entire time, but it meant we had to stop somewhere that I don't think you'd normally stop, because it was kind of in a corridor between 2 scenes, and this actor was actually part of one of the actor-led scenes that followed where he stopped us. So yeah, that wasn't too ideal. And then, I don't think the others in our group heard this, but a staff member completely out of character also took it in their course to sort this thing out, and as we went into the next scene and the actor was saying something, basically shouted something from afar. So that wasn't great, and it did take away from it a bit. So I'm not sure whether that affected our run through in other areas of the attraction, but it just felt like that in some places there was some missed opportunities where the actors could have done some more intense close-up scares. But I certainly wouldn't say it's worth the £14 it costs on the door to do it. It's probably worth £10 at most. So I think Pasaje definitely need to have a look at that. You can actually book on their website, which I'll have a link to in the description, for £12, so it is a bit cheaper. But because we're idiots and we weren't entirely sure if we were going to be doing it until the day, we didn't do that. You can also find a bunch of restrictions on the website, such as not to do it, obviously, if you have epilepsy or a heart condition or anything else that may be aggravated by it, and it's not recommended for those under the age of 10. However, I would say that 10 is pushing it a little bit, and I'd say probably 11 or 12 is the minimum age you want to be looking at to do it. Just a warning that from this point onwards, there will be spoilers. No filming's allowed in the attraction, so obviously no footage from inside it, but I will use a few promotional photos from Pasaje and clips and stuff throughout this. Batching, you are batched there for quite a while, aren't you, actually? Longer than you would be at Thorpe. It was a good few minutes. We were joined with like another group. How many was there in total? Was it about seven?
Yeah, 7.
Yeah. Eventually we were called down, we gave in our tickets, we went down some stairs, really well themed that first bit. There's like a church or something, but there's like loads of like, it's very narrow, and for those accessibility wise, I will warn you, there's quite a number of stairs to get down to the basement. So you've got a spiral staircase where you get to the bottom and you get into this like holding bit where you know, you get your usual thing of, can I please have everybody's attention, blah blah blah, no recording devices and stuff like that. There's going to be loud noises, smoke,
Yeah.
And actors, if you don't like any of that, turn back now. I think there was something like that, I can't quite remember.
They say that, but yeah, apparently
yeah.
you don't get a refund once you
No.
purchase your ticket, which is fair enough.
Once you actually enter like that bit with the stairs and stuff, you don't get a refund. The actor that is kind of guiding you up to this point, who's done all the safety briefing, like knocks on the door, and there's a bit of rattling and stuff, and then the door is opened on the other side, and then you go into this like really dark room, almost pitch black in there, and there's this actor doing this speech like as if it's like your final judgment and that you're dying pretty much kind of thing, like, you know, the Lord has given me the power, blah blah blah, you know, you've got to pass through the gates and find your way. And in the middle of that speech there is a jump scare from the back. Was it from the back? I think it's from the back.
Like this little window at the back.
Yeah, there's like a drop box at the back, so that made me jump anyway. And then he swings open these gates and there's quite a loud like bang as like these gates open. You then proceed through into like a graveyard, I think it was, and there's this actor banging. They use the props really well in this attraction. He's like banging something, makes you jump a few times. So you go through that, and after that we went into like a little forest. I want to say, was it a forest? Something like that. I think there was a little forest like leading to that, and then there's this actor who greets you, and this is another actor-led segment. So you go into the shop, you're held in there for a little while actually, and he's like picking someone to go first pretty much, and then eventually picks someone, and he kind of switched the group round a bit basically, so I ended up at the front after this point. He says, I'm going to let you through the secret passageway. When you enter that, a phone starts ringing, and it's like, what's your favourite scary movie? This scene is a new scene for this year, for the 25th anniversary actually, and it's a little Ghostface jump scare. I didn't really see it, to be honest. There's a little noise that goes off.
It was very quick.
Yeah, really quick.
Well, it was one of them where we just came through and it was there and then just ran off.
Yeah, like a little 5-10 second passage into the next room, which was like the nun room, people call that. That had a good scare. We had an actor scare us, and then this like woman thing screamed, who was like the nun. We then went into like a little, a really compact like crypt room, and he basically said that like in the next room there's a girl that's been possessed by the devil, that sort of thing. And I was like, oh yeah, Emily Olsen as a joke, because obviously it's not Emily Olsen, it's the Exorcist, but similar sort of thing. You went into the room where there's this girl on the bed that you walk around pretty much, and it felt like a while until she jumped off it. Like, you thought it was an animatronic or something.
No, I mean, I remember it being like a human, but an actor, but they were taking too long to actually jump scare, so I actually did think it was animatronic at first.
Yeah. I think the actor was waiting to do the scare until everyone was in the room, so that everyone got it, which was good. But yeah, she scared. She did the scare. You know, it is a bit of a jump. People hype that scare up a lot. She jumps and chases you a bit. There are other scares in that maze that got me more, but it's probably because it was at the front. I think if you're at the back, you get that scare a lot more.
It was like was too far in the room, like we didn't really get it.
Yeah. So we went through there, and then you go into like the boiler room bit, I think it is, where I think it's Freddy Krueger jumps out. There's a little scare in there, you like zigzag a bit, and then you go into like this corridor, and like for some reason we all stopped in there. And then it's Michael Myers. She said it was Jason, somebody. It's Michael Myers.
I couldn't tell who it was, to be honest.
So it's like a, I don't know, is it asylum, hospital type thing? And then she screamed really loud when he jumped out, because like the alarms start going off and everything, and she was like, it's behind us.
No, because I forgot Michael Myers was actually in there.
Yeah. And then after that we went into like a bathroom. You said it was like Saw Alive, the next bit.
No, because there was like some like meat things like hanging down, so it just
well, there was some people like banging. We went past that, and then we went into like a Saw Alive / Creep Freak style room, where there was like things hanging down, wasn't there? Like,
Yeah.
and then there was a couple of strodes and stuff. And like after that, it was full steam ahead. 3 chainsaws coming at us, one after the other.
You nearly walked into them.
I literally millimetres away from one of them, and then we basically ran after that out the maze. So I thought we'd get Josh's opinion. What did you think of Passage?
Enjoyed it. You said there wasn't a lack of actors. I think there was.
Did you?
In places, I think there were places where we spent a lot of time walking through, like the graveyard and stuff, and the feeling's nice, and that's what I appreciate. Really.
It felt very trailers-esque to me.
Yeah, and there's a few good jump scares in there. It's more like story
I feel
rather
like
than jump scares.
I don't know. I feel
really.
like the second half's a lot more intense than the first half.
One of them asked for Emily's face, and that was nice. That was cool. For a shot.
The ending's intense, though. You've got to admit.
Oh yeah.
3
yeah.
chainsaws.
It's funny. But yeah.
There isn't a chainsaw. He said.
I know.
There was 3 of them.
There is now.
There was 3.
But yeah, like I say, I always say this. I'm pretty numb to jump scares, so like any maze, like they don't do much for me, like scare wise. So
I hope it
appreciate the theming and the storytelling and whatever, and they had that. So
I hope it were better than survival
I
games
enjoyed
and
it.
the review you gave that.
It was probably better than survival games, yeah, much. So, but yeah, like I say, I had theming. It felt different to last time, to be honest.
I
Like,
think
they've
the
changed
first
a lot.
time that we did it was genuinely better. When I saw that there was like Chucky and it was all horror character themed, I had hope. But honestly, it wasn't scary. There was not nearly enough. I didn't feel as like immersed. There wasn't enough actors. I don't dislike it at all. But
Bear in mind, she
was it
does do a
worth-
lot of scare attractions
Was
and
it
she's
worth
not
14
scared.
quid? No, I'm not
No,
scared.
it wasn't.
But the Thorpe Park mazes made me. There were points in the Thorpe Park mazes where it really did catch me off guard, and that one,
I have
it
had
honestly didn't.
I have had better actor interactions at Thorpe, I will be honest, and
I think the actors did a great job. Of course they did.
it was better than my trailers run through, but I know you've had some good run through trailers.
that girl on the bed, I was staring her down.
Joshua,
That sounds really.
No, don't do it. You've got a head for it, mate.
I was like staring her down to see if it was an animatronic or whether it was a real person. Ended up being a real person.
it's Emily Alton,
The
innit?
people behind
It's
us
not.
ended up getting a good jump scare out.
Yeah,
of it,
I've
which
said
was
to
good.
Danielle, I think that's one you need to be at the back
yes.
to get because she chases you a bit. So
Yeah, that's it. I also like, slamming metal on metal makes some big noise. I
at the
like
start
that.
of that,
I like
yeah.
that strategy of jump scare. They used that a lot in Portaventura, and I quite liked it.
There was 2 bits. There was the graveyard at the start, and then near the end, they were like, I think there was like a cage,
His
and there was.
acting was really good. That bloke.
Danielle,
Hello.
what did you think?
I think it was decent. I mean, I think like the Scream character could have been more involved instead of just that one in and then he's just out and you never see them again.
Yeah,
But that actor did do a good job with what they were meant to do. All the actors did good. The Michael Myers, I completely forgot that was there.
that is a scary scene, to be fair.
And I didn't expect 3 chainsaws.
No, because they only used to be 1. That scene's changed quite a bit for this year, actually.
Yeah,
I've heard.
the ending has become like a lot more intense.
But to see my first ever scare maze reactions, go and watch the video on the right side of your screen when we went to Thorpe Park Fright Nights. And for more things theme park related in the UK and beyond, click the icon in the centre of your screen to subscribe to ThrillNet.